Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we're going to be answering one of the questions you guys asked us. Where can you see battle damage on USS New Jersey? Well, the short answer is you've really got to look for it. I am only aware of 2 places where you can see battle damage on the whole ship. We've previously talked about Seaman Robert Osterwin dying in May of 1951, and in that video I showed where the damage is from actual combat with the enemies on the face of Turret 1. So be sure to check that out in the link description below. The only other place that you can see damage is under the flight deck. On December 24th, 1944, Admiral Chester Nimitz was on board New Jersey to celebrate Christmas. New Jersey became the first ship in history to break the 5-star flag of an American admiral when Admiral Nimitz, who had recently been promoted, came on board. She was anchored in Ulithi Atoll with the rest of 3rd Fleet, and on that date, some other ships were out doing anti-aircraft drills, so they're firing their guns at towed sleds. In one instance, one of the 5-inch anti-aircraft rounds that they fired was improperly fused, or the fuse failed to go off, and so the shell missed the target and continued into Ulithi Atoll, where it landed on the fantail deck of Battleship New Jersey. Back here, the ship is not armored at all, so it was able to punch through the deck. Unfortunately, we can't see that damage anymore because later on in the ship's career, the flight deck was added on top of it. So we cannot see it from above. Let's go down below and see if we can see it from the inside of the ship. We are in the ship's library on the starboard side of 2nd deck, over the librarian's desk. And this is the one place where you can clearly see the damage. Remember, it's obscured from the flight deck above. This is where the shell passed through the deck, and they just welded a patch on top of it. So you can see a normal riveted plate right here, and you see that it's cut off, and there's a welded strip and a new plate that has been welded in this area. You can see all these weld marks, and it's roughly 2 feet long and maybe 2 or 3 feet wide. So this is where the shell hit and kind of came in at an angle, so it leaves kind of an oval mark and leaves a dent, a big depression. So they have to just cut out a square all the way around that, which is what you see here, and then stiffen it again because you've lost that riveted plate. So that is a repair to damage. Remember, damage control is there's a hole in the deck, somebody comes and puts a board over it, or maybe shores up a board from this side to keep that out while you're in combat, and then afterwards you go back and you weld, and this is a permanent repair that we're seeing here. So the projectile passes through there, and then presumably it continues through the deck somewhere in this area, but because the floor is covered with leveling compound and tile, we've got no idea where it is on this end until we have to replace the tile in here. So before we continue to where the shell ended up, let me read the ship's deck log. 10:32 a.m. on Sunday, December 24th, 1944. Received a direct hit on the main deck at frame 185, starboard side, from a 5-inch 38 shell fired by a task group outside the lagoon on our port side, which was conducting an anti-aircraft practice. The shell pierced the main deck through compartment C207L, passed through the 2nd deck, and lay unexploded in washroom C333 TAC 3L. The shell was removed and disposed of overboard after being inspected by Lieutenant, that's either a C or a G, maybe G.B. Van Vleck, V-L-E-C-K, U.S. Navy Reserve, Bomb Disposal Office, or Bomb Disposal Officer. It's interesting that we had somebody designated as the bomb disposal officer on board. Pictures were taken of the shell. The following men were injured by the shell: Clover Robert B., Seaman Second Class, and then his serial number, USNR. Multiple wounds on his left leg, ankle, and right buttock. Retained in sickbay. Bishop John B. or John D. BM First Class. His serial number, U.S. Naval Reserve. Multiple superficial wounds, treated at sickbay and returned to duty. And Tillman Samuel C., Seaman Second Class. His serial number, U.S. Naval Reserve. Multiple superficial wounds, treated at sickbay and returned to duty. And then 11:30, mustered the crew at quarters. No absences.
And one time, we said we never got hit, and damaged by, but there were some destroyers out practicing, and we was in taking on stores at one of the islands, and one of the shells, one of the destroyers hit us on the fantail.
Friendly fire.
Friendly fire. And one of the, went down 4 decks down through the aft. Right aft on the fantail, it went down 4 decks, and that's the only thing I believe we got hit with.
Was anybody killed or injured?
It wasn't killed. One guy got a leg tore off. They tore his leg off then, and
later on, during a different watch, 1408, Fleet Admiral C.W. Nimitz, accompanied by 3 members of his staff, came on board and broke his flag. His flag was immediately hauled down after being broken. Breaking your flag is when you raise it up the mast of the ship and it's kind of hanging there, and then when the wind catches it, it breaks open from where it was all folded up so other ships can see it. Of course, an admiral ship is known as a flagship because the admiral flies his flag on that ship, so other ships in his formation can look for the ship with the admiral's flag and figure out where their orders are supposed to be coming from. So the fact that it's hauled up and then hauled back down immediately shows that it's purely a ceremonial thing. Admiral Nimitz came on board, we're doing this. This is still Admiral Halsey's flagship flying his flag. Yeah, so this becomes the first time ever that a 5-star flag is flown from a ship, and I can't imagine too many other instances when it came in handy. There were only ever 4 5-star admirals. So now we're down on 3rd deck in the washroom where the shell ends up. It comes through the deck, expends all of its force punching through these multiple layers of relatively thin steel at this point of the ship, and then comes to rest in a wash basin in roughly this area. Because the inside of the ship here is all welded, it's really hard to see where a new plate was cropped in to patch that hole. So this is sort of a best guess area. That combined with all of the plumbing that's in the overhead here makes it really hard to inspect this area. So really, the overhead of the library is the only place to see it. Now, as this shell is passing through the ship, it is punching through these thin pieces of steel, which is what is dispersing fragmentation, and that is what is wounding our sailors. Nobody gets hit by the shell directly, but the pieces of deck that get broken away as the shell punches through fly out and catch a couple of people, mostly down here in the washroom. So, New Jersey's total damage over her career is completely unimpressive, and there's not much to see, and you really, really have to be looking for it when you see it. The ship was an incredibly lucky ship to have not been hit, and if she had been hit repeatedly, I'm not sure there would have been much to see either, because again, she goes on to serve throughout a long career, which means everything was patched up well, and her armor would have prevented significant visible damage in most parts of the ship. What's the weirdest place you've ever celebrated Christmas? For myself, nothing compares to that poor guy who was in the bathroom in the South Pacific when a shell comes through and forces him to go to sick bay. So sick bay in the South Pacific on a battleship is probably the weirdest one I've ever heard of. What about you? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below to more ways you can donate to support the ship. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas.